and rise. Break out of the pain. It's more than procreation, self-stimulation. Welcome to Porn Talk. This is Powerful Eric. This show is not just about breaking addictions, it's about breaking belief systems. We have another incredible chain breaker with us today. With us today, we have Tenya Eickenberg. And she is an anxiety release coach, which I could use about right now. Tenya is not just any coach. She's a modern day healer who draws inspiration from the vibrant, heroic world of 80s cartoons like He-Man and She-Ra. In this episode, Tenya will share how she helps people channel their inner hero to overcome anxiety, depression, and even porn addiction. So get ready to learn how you can tap into your own superpowers to transform your life and become the hero of your own story.
Absolutely.
Let's welcome Tenya to the show. Welcome, Tenya.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. Well, anxiety. So when guys come to me, they think they're coming to me to overcome porn addiction, which that's of course part of it. But what I tell them when we start working together is this is not about the porn.
Mm-hmm.
This is not about the porn. This is not about the porn. So Tenya, if it's not about the porn, then what is it about?
Oh, it's about it's about not feeling your feelings. It's about the deep rooted anxiety, depression, loneliness, worry that is just so rooted in your body, your energy bodies, your consciousness, that it really does, in a sense, start to control every aspect of your life. And it's very hard if you don't know what it is that you're looking for. You don't know what it is that is hooking you in each and every time that you're drawn to turning on that video, or other addictions. This goes for all addictions. When going towards that thing that makes you feel good, you're moving towards that because there's stuff going on inside of you that you don't want to feel. And until you start feeling and dealing with that stuff, it's going to be really hard to break away.
Yes, we numb, cope, and escape with alcohol, drugs, porn, whatever, trying to numb, cope, and escape. But Tenya, what in the world does superheroes have to do with, especially 80s superheroes like He-Man and She-Ra?
That is how my imagination works. When I'm working with a client, oftentimes when I see things come up that they need to address, or we've worked through something and I have this image of, just an image of, like, say, a Scooby-Doo scene where, where the monster takes off his mask and it's just a human underneath. It is, oftentimes I will see my clients take off their mask, and underneath of that mask of this monster that is creating this havoc with themselves is them. It's just another part of them that is saying, oh, hey, I'm here to cause you problems because, yeah, you really need to talk to me. You really
Yoinks!
pay attention to me. But in my imagination, right? I mean, a lot of, healers and psychics and those people in the energy world get downloads or images. Mine just come through like 80s cartoons. When I tell someone, you need to hold space for yourself, or you need to hold space for this person that you need to forgive, I often see them with this heart illuminated, like my Care Bear back here, that they're just doing this Care Bear stare, and that is what they need to imagine as they're forgiving these people, or they're holding space for them. You send out this love and this compassion. And when you're able to do that for other people, when you're able to do that more for yourself, you can do it for other people. So I always tell my clients, imagine yourself standing in front of you, and I want you to Care Bear stare to yourself. But the people I work with, they get that because they've grown up in the same era. And so it's easy for them to relate, to go, oh, I totally get what you mean.
The Care Bear stare.
We should all Care Bear stare.
Yeah, that was more of a girl show, but I still was very aware of it, and it was on all the time. And I know just what you're talking about. And of course, I also know this. You're talking about the Scooby-Doo.
Mm-hmm.
I would have got away with it if it wasn't for those meddling kids.
Exactly. Our those aspects of us, those parts of us that don't want you to change. They want you to stay in that addiction. They're so they may be so sad or so angry, but when you can turn around and have a simple, and I know this sounds very woo-woo, like you're imagining yourself, and you're having a conversation with yourself, and you're just like, I'm so sorry that this happened to you when you were little. I'm so sorry that this kind of thing that you had to go through was even a thing. And understand that none of this is your fault, that your addiction is not your fault, but that it's a response to things that you went through as a kid, as a teenager. It's things that were passed down to you from your parents that you had no control over in rejecting, because you trusted your parents. They are there to guide you and to support you. And when they talk down to you, or they tell you that you don't know what is good for you, or what you're doing is wrong, when you hear that enough, you start to believe it.
It doesn't sound woo-woo to me at all. We do a thing called voice dialogue where you talk to your addict self. And I love everything you're talking about. And I love the whole 80s superhero idea, and the taking off the mask.
Mm-hmm.
Taking off the mask. The irony of like you're really revealing yourself unto yourself.
Yeah. We are not taught to be vulnerable with ourselves. It's hard enough to be vulnerable with other people, but I think it's even more difficult to be vulnerable with ourselves because we don't have the knowledge to figure out what's going on, because we come into this world as babies. We come into this world as a almost a blank slate. And up until about 3 or 4 years old, we are carefree. We just have fun. We run around, and around 3 or 4 years old, when our conscious mind really starts to develop and we really start paying attention to our environment, we're all of a sudden kind of compressed, right? We're taught by our parents and other adults what they think is right and what they think is wrong. And I'm totally to blame for that as well with my kids. My oldest is 28 and I've got 24-year-old twins. And when I had kids, I compressed them. I did, because that's all I knew. It's the only knowledge I had at the time. You only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know until someone brings it to light. And so, I wish I could go back and not compress my children into these molds that society says that we need to conform to.
Absolutely. You can't see this here, but I have a statue that I'm looking at, and it's called the Self-Made Man, and he's got a big hammer, and his body's like all in the stone, and he's chiseling himself out of the stone. And I spoke to the creator of this piece, and she says, he's carving his character, he's chiseling his future. And she also made a one called the Self-Made Woman, same idea. And it's identity. So identity is massively, hugely important, right?
Mm-hmm. It is. And we have so many different layers to our identity. You can call them layers. You can call them aspects. There's lots of different parts of us. And there's a great book called No Bad Parts. And I truly believe that there are no bad parts. They are just parts. I don't believe that we have faults, because whose opinion is it that we have a fault? Right? It's really our own. We can believe what other people say, but once we believe it, it's considered our own.
So what are some of the challenges with the people that you work with that they have around identity that is fueling either their addiction or their problem, whatever it happens to be? What's your experience?
One of the aspects is imposter syndrome.
I know that one.
I
know that one well.
Yeah, it comes up a lot in entrepreneurship, right? That we all have this imposter syndrome, that we want to be like the influencers that are, have 1 million followers. And that's what people kind of think imposter syndrome is. But really, we all have imposter syndrome, because you can tell how you change depending on who you're around. You will shift yourself to conform or become a chameleon around certain people so that you are more acceptable to them. And we start doing this when we get into school, because our teachers want conformity. Our schools want conformity. Now, I haven't been in school for a very long time, so I don't know if that's how it is now. But in order to have calmness and control with 30 to 40 kids in a classroom, you really have to push that conformity, which then creates that imposter syndrome. And kids start to lose who they really are, because they have to conform so that their teacher likes them, so that their principal likes them, so that the other kids around them like them. But that also goes for when you're at home. You change who you are when, around your parents. Mm-hmm. At 8 years old, I learned to be a people pleaser at home, because I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to have an upheaval of emotions. that I didn't know how to deal with, because I wasn't taught how to deal with my emotions, because my parents didn't know how to deal with emotions.
Right.
And so, people pleasing starts very, very young, because we want our parents to like us. We want them to be proud of us. And our parents, they grew up in a world where they were taught the same thing. So you can't blame them for it. It took me a long time to come to that conclusion that I really can't blame my parents for how they raised me, because they only had the knowledge that they had. And people will say, oh, well, that's a very unfair statement. Like, they could have sought out different ways. But if they didn't have the knowledge to seek things out, how are they going to seek things out? It's not an excuse. It's just, I just choose not to blame them anymore for it.
Yeah. They did the best with the tools they had at the time. And some people's toolboxes are smaller than others.
Exactly. And some toolboxes stay closed, so you can't put anything else in. There are absolutely times when people are presented with tools that can really help them. But again, their knowledge, their acceptance of those tools, there's still a block there. And if they just cannot see how these tools are going to help them, they may not even try. But that, again, that is just something that's going on within them. And you can't blame them for it. You just say, okay, you know what? The tool's here when you're ready. If you need help, let me know. And if you have that boundary that you need to set, because maybe you've helped them, you tried to help them, and they just keep pushing you away, you could say, you know what? Here's the tool, but you need to find somebody else to help them. I mean, you have to set boundaries with people. Forgiving people and accepting them for who they are. It does not mean that you have to engage with them. It doesn't mean that you have to let them in your life. It just means that, you know what, there's a boundary here. I'm not going to let you cross it, and we're going to move on.
Boundaries is a word that, if someone is working in addiction world, knows that word very well. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. And you need to set appropriate boundaries for others and yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And how does anxiety, one of the things you do is help people with anxiety. How does boundaries and anxiety play into, let's say, porn addiction?
So people with a porn addiction or any addiction, they were introduced to these things at some point, right? Somebody had to introduce them to porn at some point, and that was the first time the boundary was crossed. And if you don't know that you needed that boundary, then of course you were never taught how to set boundaries in the first place. Typically, if somebody you feel uncomfortable when something is presented to you, right? And 9 times out of 10, people who are presented with watching porn are probably feeling a little uncomfortable the first time that they watch it. Because typically they're probably presented to it by somebody else, whether it was as they were a kid and it was presented to them by a trusted adult who was like, oh, you want to see this? And now they're thinking, oh, it's okay because this trusted adult showed it to me. Or these days, you've got the internet. How freaking scary.
I don't think I've ever verbalized this. Talk about being introduced to it. I actually was introduced to it long before this, but I was at work, and I was probably the youngest person I know I was the youngest person at this job at the time, and I was in someone's cubicle, and this older guy, he wasn't like trying to do anything to me, anything like that. He was
Right.
being silly. But he pulls up on the computer a graphic image, and then it just so happens at that moment, the president and CEO of the company walks into the cubicle. Oh my gosh, I will never forget that. And the guy that was showing to me kind of just laughed and turned it off. And the CEO kind of just laughed off too, which I was, I've just, that memory came to me now. It's like, wow, so being introduced to, like, I always tell people, if you think your darling child is never going to watch pornography, I guarantee you, if they don't go searching for it, a friend's going to show it to them. If the friend doesn't show it to them, they're going to stumble across it accidentally. They are going to see it for sure. So anyway, I digress. So, but anxiety. So
yeah. So when, watching porn, it gives you this sense of acceptance, because the people, even though like realistically we know they don't see us, but they look at you through that camera lens and they make you feel good. They make you feel wanted. And when you feel that, and that goes with any addiction, right? When you start smoking and you're smoking around your friends and your friends you're having a good time, you're feeling accepted by your friends. When you're drinking, you're feeling accepted by your friends when you're drinking. But through that camera lens, those guys and gals are like, we're here for you. Look how good this feels. This can feel good for you too. And so you're watching it and you're getting into it. And that that feeling good stems from not having good feelings in other situations, not loving yourself, not feeling loved by your parents, or feeling appreciated by your teachers or your friends or your coworkers or whatever, but not having that love and compassion for yourself. You look for it in outside sources. And watching a porn can give you that same feeling. It can trigger those same endorphins. And so when you're finally feeling those, and they feel so good,
they do.
You want more. You want more. And you realize, oh my gosh, when I feel like this, I don't have to deal with how I'm really feeling.
Yeah.
And so then you start trying to find all the different times that you can practice your addiction. And then you start to hide it. And the more and more you do it, then it starts to become, you got to hide it, because like you're doing it so much. And so there's something going on there.
Yeah. If you, and I'm glad you brought up the thing about hiding it, because there's some people that's like, well, there's nothing wrong with it and it's fine and all. Okay, well then, do you hide? Like, do you tell people what you do? Do you tell people what you watch? Do you hide it? Do you feel like you have to hide it? I mean, if you have to hide it, then there's something going on there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a former smoker, and I finally quit for the very last time this past May.
Congratulations.
A lot of people are probably like, "Oh, you're an energy healing. Why are you smoking?" It's. But
you're a human being.
I had all of this stuff. It was so deeply ingrained in me because my parents are both smokers. My grandparents were smokers. It was just something that was so deeply ingrained. But there were all of these energetic reasons for it as well. I had to do work between me and 6 other people who were smokers, because I had cords attached to them where I was just, I wanted what they had when I was trying to quit smoking. And smoking covered up it was, I've healed from anxiety, but there was still stuff that not just the smoking was dealing with anxiety. There was so much more to it. There were beliefs attached to it. There were, the chemical endorphins from the nicotine that would make me feel good. And it can take a lot of work to heal from an addiction.
Absolutely. All those endorphins, dopamine, all those feel-good chemicals. It feels so good in the moment.
Yeah.
But then when you're done, reality comes crashing down.
Right. Right. I heard it was a quote from Richard Simmons. I can't say it word for word, but his was around food, but it was like, do you want to eat the bad food and feel good for a couple of minutes and then feel bad later? Or do you want to eat the good food and feel bad in that couple of minutes that you have to eat the good food? Because it doesn't taste very, it's not very tasty, but you feel good long term. You feel good later. And it's the same thing, right? Do you want to watch that porn in the moment and feel good for that, 20 or 30 seconds and feel bad later because that it really didn't serve you long term? Or do you want to stop and work on that, do that inner work, the energetic work, the conscious work, so that while you're struggling in the meantime to feel good long term, you're going to feel amazing.
That short-term, very short-term pleasure can equal long-term pain.
Yes. And short-term displeasure can create long-term enjoyment.
That's exactly right. In fact, on these studies they've done on like billionaires and such, they have a long-term perspective. Like they may wait years or even decades or even a lifetime to get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the addict, their time span is like seconds or minutes.
Yeah.
As opposed to the billionaire whose decades or a lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah. And I learned that, when I started healing from my anxiety and depression, it was not easy learning what energy healing was while my anxiety and depression was ramping up, because at that point I'd come back off of the medication because I couldn't feel anything, and I needed to feel my feelings. I needed to know what I needed to work with. And it was not easy learning energy healing at that moment or going through it. And then once I felt like I was about 80% healed, it took me about 4 months of energy healing to feel better. But it opened up that space to do the conscious work, to do the meditation, the journaling, learning what boundaries were, how to set them, feeling my feelings again, and understanding that my feelings might last 10 or 15 seconds once I let myself feel them. And then they're gone and I'm good.
Yeah. You've said many times, feeling my feelings, feeling my feelings. And someone maybe listening to this is like, what do you mean feel my feelings? I just like doing this. I like drinking alcohol, or I like smoking, or I like porn, but I liked it and then I got addicted to it. So what are you talking about? Feeling my feelings. My feeling is it's fun, or I just enjoy the pleasure. What would you say to that person?
I would challenge them to wait to go to their addiction and see what they're feeling when they're resisting their addiction. Because that's when that stuff is coming up. It might be anger, it might be sadness, it might be worry. Most of the time it's probably going to be anger or grief that's going to be coming up.
Anger is a big one for all the guys I work with and myself, so much so that the mascot for the show, he's a little wiener man, call him Raging Richard. And the joke is, don't be like Raging Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be a dick like Richard. Because
Yeah.
when you're acting out with whatever the addiction is, generally the person is not pleasant to be around. And so conscious, for me, it was never like a conscious thing like, oh, I'm feeling bad or depressed, therefore I'm going to use porn. It's usually just like I find myself on it. I'm like 2 hours later, I'm like, how did I get here? You know, and I think, oh, well, I was just must have been really horny or whatever. It's like, no, my body was having me.
Disassociating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're disassociating from your emotions. And and there's a lot of energetic reasons that you might disassociate from your body and kind of step away from it. There's we talked about woo-woo-ness, and so there's these entities and other offensive energies that feed off of our low vibrations. And when we get into watching porn or angry music or violent movies, we can zone out and disassociate, and then that's when they kind of swoop in and go, whoo, we're going to have a good time with this one, and they just kind of pick on you.
Disassociation and these entities will be an awesome place to pick up when we have you back next week. So, and we will hear talk about some of the challenges here, but we'll talk about some of the solutions and how you can use energy healing and some of these other things in this next episode. So we need to say goodbye today, but just real quick, because we'll have you next week. But if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the website to reach out to you at?
designyourexistence.com.
All right. Thank you, Tenya. We will see you next week. Oops. Okay. We said we're talking about entities. What did I say we were going to come pick up?
Entities, offensive energies.
All right, let's start part 2. We're just going to go right to it here. Welcome back to Porn Talk in part 2 of our conversation with Tenya Eickenberg. We're diving deeper into how to unleash your inner superhero and overcome anxiety and porn addiction. Last time, we explored the power of 80s cartoons and healing energy. And today, we will focus on how Tenya's approach to addressing entities and offensive energies. Let's dive in. Welcome back, Tenya.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate being able to kind of get into the more woo-woo stuff of this.
Absolutely. So a friend, not a friend, a dear, close, my spiritual mentor, advisor, she's just been deceased for a long time now. She was very, very intuitive, psychic. Okay, and for those of you that say, psychic stuff, that's coming from the devil, then you can look at that instead. It's called, I have a friend who's a Catholic priest, and he's psychic, but they don't call it that. He calls it, he has the gift of discernment.
Yeah. So, it's funny how religion changes, changes the terms.
So if you have, this person has the gift of discernment. And anyway, she told me, she said, if you could see what is on the astral plane, you could say the spirit world, the other side. And if you could see what was there when you walked into a bar, she said you would never go in.
Nope.
Because what she said is there are, say, things waiting to attach to you to get that high from whatever it is that you're going to do. So this is your world here, Tenya. Tell us more.
Yeah. So, these disembodied spirits, these entities, these things that we can't see, they're energy bodies. And, some of them might have been human at some point. Some of them might be from, other places, and they've just, come to earth to feed off of these low vibration feelings and energies that we're holding on to. And some of them have had addictions in the past, and they're not ready to move on because they still want to feed off of that energy. They still get that high, even though they are unseen. They still want to get that high, and they will attach themselves to people who are going through those same addictions. So alcoholics are going to have these unseen beings. And I always stress to my clients, do not have fear when it comes to these things. I don't want to talk to people and instill fear, because these I see these beings as like our neighbors down the street that are just, they're not sociable. They don't want to talk to anybody. They are just, they're just doing their own thing, and they're not very nice people, but it's just how they are, right? These entities, these spirit attachments, these offensive energies, it is their job to make us uncomfortable, to harm us in some way. And it's the only job they've ever known. And until we seek them out and have a little chat with them, they may not realize how much better it is if they go the other direction, if they start to become more positive beings. And I have helped many become more positive and let go of the people that they were hanging on to. Because really the high on the positive side of the other side is so much better than the low. But they just don't see it. Just like when we're in our grips of addiction, we don't see how much better happiness and joy feels, because we just can't see it. But these entities and these disembodied spirits, they cord themselves to us. And I call it like a sucking straw. And They just take and take and take whatever it is that they want. And those things that we're doing to make us feel good, they're taking it. Well, then we need more because they've taken it all.
Yeah. And, you're bringing up a good point with porn addiction or alcohol, whatever. Like, how do you feel afterwards? Like, I can honestly say, after viewing pornography, I never once ever felt like, oh, wow, now I feel so great. I'm so proud of myself. I
Right.
masturbated to the worst porn I could possibly find. And I just want to go out and I want to go tell everybody.
Yeah.
I'm just so excited about it. I'm going to tell my neighbors, oh, man, you should have seen the porn I was watching. I was on it all day. Or last night, I just got so smashed, I can't remember anything.
Yep.
So, and it's quite the opposite, right? Like, we feel completely drained, not proud of ourselves, a lot of shame, guilt, and that shame and guilt in negative energy
Mm-hmm.
is what they're feeding on, right?
It just drains. Yeah, it just drains you. And then you feel like you need to go back and refuel. And so that's when you go back and you watch another movie, or you grab another drink, or you buy another pack. And it's just a vicious cycle until you say I'm done. And in the first, they say the first step to recovery is admitting that you have a problem, and it absolutely is. In anything, the first step to recovering from anxiety and depression is saying, I have anxiety and depression. It does not have to be diagnosed by a doctor. Mine was not clinical, but I knew what I had. I knew that I was sad a lot of the time. I knew that I was worried a lot of the time. I knew that I held my emotions in. I knew that I used cigarettes and alcohol to cover them up. And I did not feel good. Like, I physically did not feel good.
Yeah.
Pay attention to how your body feels when you think about your addiction, right? Whenever you think about pushing play on the next video, pay attention to where in your body you're feeling discomfort.
I really like what you're saying there. To pay attention to your body and where that discomfort may be. If it's before you're acting out, what's going on there, and then afterwards,
Mhm.
how are you feeling?
Yeah. If you're feeling shame afterwards, there's something really that you need to look at. Like, where's that shame coming from? And typically that shame is not coming from watching the porn. That shame is going to be coming from something that happened to you during childhood, or it could be something that was passed down from your parent. When I was healing my anxiety and depression, a lot of the stuff that I had to clear out and get rid of were inherited energies from my dad's dad, who was an alcoholic and
Mhm.
died at a very young age. And they were just passed down through my dad to me.
Yeah.
And as I healed my anxiety and depression, I could see the shifts in my dad, because whatever I cleared from me cleared from him as well. But I didn't know that that's what was at the root of my mental illness. I thought it was other stuff on my ego.
Yeah, generational healing. Generational healing. I know on both sides of my family, I have addiction on both sides of my family. And so that, of course, plays a big part. But let's talk about solutions. So we know we have all these challenges: anxiety, depression, addiction, entities attaching to us. So, well, what are we going to do about it?
Well, you can always call me.
Of course.
find, for me, I had to do the energetic work before I could do the conscious work. Because whenever I tried to do the conscious work before finding energy healing, it was so difficult. But mindset work does work. Changing your mindset absolutely works. Shifting your belief systems. If you find that you can't do the conscious work, seek out an energy healer. Seek out someone who can help to move that negative energy out, to leave more space, to bring more positive things in. If energy healing is not your thing, then do the mindset work. Start with journaling. Journal about what your beliefs are. Do you have, so, there are a lot of different beliefs, and I'll pull these up real quick, that you can have that you might need to address. It might be like, I'm unworthy of love, right? Why would you be unworthy of love as a human being? None of us are unworthy of love, but we often feel that way. I hate myself. I feel lost. I don't deserve happiness. I'm only happy when I'm in my addiction. Those are beliefs that you can address on a conscious level and really kind of journal about why you have them. The other things are meditation, which brings you into the moment. Anxiety is worrying about the future, worrying about the what ifs. Depression is being sad about what was or what could have been. So depression is the past, anxiety is the future. But when you can be in the moment, and everybody's like, what do you mean by being in the moment? Like, I'm right here. It's like, no, but when you're sitting there in silence, where does your mind go? Does it go to the past? Does it go to the future? Or is it just right now? Are you paying attention to how your muscles are twitching as you're just sitting there? Can you feel your toes on the carpet or on the hardwood floor? That is being in the moment. It's not being on your phone. It's not listening to music. It's just sitting there. And this is where meditation starts. Start with 1 minute a day of sitting in silence. And I swear that minute was going to feel like a half an hour the first few times that you do it. Because people do not know how to sit with themselves.
Absolutely. You're right. People do not know how to sit with themselves because there's usually a screen in front of them. Mm-hmm. Either a television, a computer monitor, a tablet, mm-hmm. a phone, and now even a watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And, there's self-care is such a huge thing that we need to start doing. Self-care really didn't start to become a thing until like the 1950s, 1960s. And it was something that women were sent away to do when they were having emotional breakdowns. It was something that the medical teams did for the mentally ill. It was, they sent them away. Then you'd come back and typically you'd be on something because it made you feel better. I mean, that's where the opioid crisis probably started. But we have to fill our cup first before we can take care of others, before we can help fill their cups. And we don't do that. And when we give and give and give and get, and then we give more, we try to, scrape the bottom of our barrel to keep giving. We then start to find the things that are going to make us feel good short term.
Yeah.
And that's where the addictions usually start.
Meditation and journaling are two tried and true things that are an absolute, in my opinion, must if mm-hmm. you want to overcome an addiction. And there was a study done on journaling, and they found that journaling was as effective as going to a therapist. Not that you shouldn't go to a therapist, not that you shouldn't go to a coach, but that's how powerful journaling is.
Yeah.
So all my clients, I recommend journaling, and all my clients, I recommend meditation as well.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, if you're scared to journal, I know a lot of women are scared to journal because their diaries were read when they were kids. And I'm guessing, I haven't worked with a whole lot of men, but I'm guessing for men to journal, it's more about, I'm a man, I don't have feelings, I shouldn't feel them. So why would I write them down? Right. For men, it might seem like a weakness to write down your thoughts and your feelings, but there might be that underneath layer of, what if somebody reads it? And with that, I get something with a lock on it. Do it on your phone, right? Apple has, I don't know if Android does, but Apple has a journaling app now. And there are tons of journaling apps out there that you can choose from. Now, handwriting is always going to be better. You don't have to pay attention to your spelling or your anything like that.
I agree.
Just write. You just don't worry, because if somebody reads it, bad on them.
Yeah. There's also another form of journaling called expressive writing or expressive journaling, where you don't put it in a journal. You just put it on like a yellow pad. You get it all out, and then immediately when you're done, you destroy it.
Right.
And that's very effective.
Yeah. And if you're worried about someone going through your trash, get a burn barrel. Burn it. You can also do voice messaging. I've had clients, I've told clients to start your own Facebook page. Or not page, but your own Facebook group. Make it private. Make sure people can't find it. But go in and post your own journaling into your Facebook group. You know, you can go back and re-listen to yourself. Or there's so many different ways to journal. And there are so many different ways to meditate. You can sit in silence to meditate. You can go for a walk. You can meditate while you're washing dishes.
Tenya, there's someone listening right now, and they're like, really, like meditation and journaling, really, like, I'm trying to break an addiction, and you're telling me to meditate and journal.
Yeah, because it will help you to find out why you have the addiction. It may take time. I promise you, this is not going to be an overnight. You're not going to journal for a week, or you might, but most people are not going to journal for a week and have an epiphany and go, oh, this is where my addiction started. This is what I need to work on.
So I'm doing the journaling, I'm doing the meditation. Where does the energy healing come in? So someone is struggling, maybe they have some attachments that they're trying to get rid of, or whatever. What is energy healing? What do you do with that? Like, how does somebody?
So energy healing at the most simplest form is, to me, these energy balls, trapped emotions, beliefs, trauma energies, they look like those little burrs that you get on your socks when you walk through a field. And so what I do as an energy healer is I tap into your energy through muscle testing. And it's just using my body as a conduit of sorts, to ask your subconscious questions. Like, what is it that is at the root cause of this addiction? And it might be a belief, right? And then we need to find out, we need to know more about this belief, where it comes from. Is it inherited? And then we go deeper and we go, okay, what's underneath of this belief that we need to energetically deal with so that we can clear it or we can shift it? And so it might be trapped emotions that you developed when you were in high school, or, in your 20s, that were just like a trapped emotion of grief when you went through a breakup, and you've just trapped it because you were just like, screw them. I'm not even going to deal with it. I'm not going to give them the energy. And you've been holding on to it.
So what method of energy healing do you like to use?
So mine is rooted in the foundation of the emotion code, which is using muscle testing. So muscle testing, or kinesiology, is using your body to tap into your subconscious. So I'll bring my camera down so you guys can see a little bit. So I use the ring to ring method, which is just kind of, putting your fingers together like this. And when I get a yes answer, it's strong. When I get a no answer, it'll pull apart. Mm-hmm. And so if I ask myself, okay, is my name Tenya? So it holds lock. Is my name Eric? No. Right? So is my name Fred? No. Is my name Tenya? Yes. So it just locks, and it's just automatic for me now. I muscle test foods. I muscle test all kinds of things. Like, is there anything in a certain book that might benefit me? And if no, then I don't need to read the book. It saves me a lot of time.
Yeah. Bless you. One of the methods that I like to use is the emotional freedom technique, or EFT. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's found very effective. But let's talk about some of the other things. Like, what about, if somebody's in a really dark place, maybe they're watching some really dark porn or into some serious drugs or whatever, and there might be something, on their shoulders, so to say. What do you do with somebody like that?
Well, they definitely need to seek out support. I'm not a therapist, and so I encourage a lot of my clients to work with therapists or go to support groups. Find somebody that they can talk to as well, because working towards, like I said, we talked a lot about feeling feelings and setting boundaries. That is that conscious work that we still need to learn to do. And so we need to seek out someone who's going to help us to do that. But when you're feeling so low, having a support system is key. And shifting what you are consciously doing, as hard as it will be, is also key. So if you are watching dark movies or you're listening to dark music, you need to shift to lighter things, or turn the TV off altogether. Stop watching the news. Find a gratitude practice. With my clients, that's one of the first pieces of homework that I have them do, is start a gratitude practice. And if you can't find one thing throughout your day to have gratitude for, you definitely need to find a support system. You have to, because I tell my clients, what's one thing you can be thankful for? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, what about two-ply paper, toilet paper? Like, have you ever had to wipe with one ply, or been out of toilet paper and had to, I don't know, use a leaf when you're camping? And I try to bring humor into my sessions, because healing is a very hard thing to do. It's a very lonely thing to do. People think that just because you have all this support around you, that you're not lonely. But nobody, I don't even really understand totally what my clients are going through, because I'm not them. And healing is a very lonely process. So you need to find people who are going to be compassionate and are going to be empathetic. Yeah. And as a support group, I would encourage them to, when this friend or this family member comes to you and they need help, ask them, do they want to be hugged? Do they want to be helped? Or do they just want to be heard?
Yeah, the opposite of addiction is connection. And turning off the news, that device will allow you to connect with another human being. And journaling your thoughts will allow you to connect with yourself and your thoughts and feelings. And let's leave with one last thing here, with the superhero. So how can the 80s superheroes help with this?
Be your own superhero.
Yes.
Create your own 80s superhero avatar. And that is where it all starts, is with
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Nobody outside of you can heal you. They can help you. We can give you tools. We can give you suggestions, but it's up to you to take action. And that is one thing that every superhero has ever done, is they took action.
That's right.
So take action, be your own superhero, and create your own existence.
Oh, love it. Love it. Be your own superhero. If it's to be, it's up to me. So,
Absolutely. Yep.
Tenya, thanks for being with us today. So, if someone wants to reach out to you and would like your help or services, how do they do that?
You can go to my website at designyourexistence.com.
Designyourexistence.com. That will get you in touch with Tenya. And well, Tenya, that wraps up our conversation. And I thank you for being here. It's been awesome. We've explored how channeling your inner hero, tackling entities, and addressing offensive energies can empower you to overcome anxiety and porn addiction. And thank you, Tenya, for sharing your insights and unique approach to energy healing.
Thank you.
And if you found, you're welcome. If you found this episode valuable, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more powerful discussions. Until next time, remember to harness your inner hero and keep striving for your best self. And remember to be powerful.